New York City and up towards Boston. So it's not just a southern thing. It's going to be heading up north, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger headlines that's going to come out of this, Jamie, as we head into the next couple of days. Of course, this was a system that we watched for many days, and of course, anticipation building as it got closer to Florida, and then finally making landfall this morning. But the fact that this is going to be dealing with very large metro cities, as you mentioned, not only for the remainder of this week, but maybe even into the weekend, and that's going to extend even possibly into Saturday. So I think that the tens and of millions of people, and possibly over 100 million people that possibly will be in the path of Elsa, will be the signature out of this storm. Now, I'm not anticipating any widespread damage on any large scope, of course, but the fact that we're going to have tropical storm force winds, and the Hurricane Center is anticipating this to remain as a tropical feature as it moves up the Atlantic seaboard, I think is notable. So we definitely are going to see some interesting things here over the coming days. Now, we have some video from the National Weather Service in Melbourne. They took a pretty neat time lapse here as some of the feeder bands of Elsa was moving onshore, moving over the Melbourne area earlier in the forecast. So you can see that there definitely has been some swift moving clouds. We are located in Orlando, Florida, for those of you that don't know. So we got our share of Elsa, a little bit of it this morning, and it's still quite breezy here as of this hour, and some of those low clouds indicative of just the intensity of the low-level jet that's helping to bring those storms over this region and wrapping it back around into that center of circulation. But what I can tell you that is we noticed today is that there has been some significant warming in the cloud tops of the thunderstorms associated with Tropical Storm Elsa. So if Matt, you want to switch back over to our weather computer, and we'll take that full, because what I have up now is the GO 16 infrared imagery, and it is an enhanced imagery that correlates cooler and warmer temperatures inside those clouds with certain colors. So as I put this in motion, you'll notice some of the warming that has taken place from some of these clouds from this very high resolution GO 16 data that gets pulls in data every 60 seconds. So very, very crystal clear imagery, and it really kind of tells the story here. So I know we've got some folks in Valdosta. I saw that on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. I know it's right over you guys right now. Take a look at some of those bands coming in over Jacksonville, Cedar Key, Perry, Florida. And as I slowly move this forward, you can see how it's, let me just back that up for a second. See how it's much darker and more of a burnt red color? Those are the very, very cold cloud tops with some significant texturing in the atmosphere. Those are very, very high up, 60,000 feet, maybe even more so. But then as I go forward in time, you see some of the warming. It comes less vibrant and a little bit more of a saturated red. That indicates some of those warming in those cloud tops, and even much more so as I get into these last couple of frames. So we definitely have seen some weakening in Elsa, and it definitely is still holding on as a tropical storm, but the veracity that this had earlier in the forecast, when it moved over the Caribbean islands and then eventually paralleled Florida, we're just not seeing that now, but this still is packing a punch. So I don't want folks to put their guard down, because the winds sustained at this hour are still around 20 to 25 miles an hour. So we have a 21 mile per hour wind in Jacksonville, sustained. Savannah has 20. Some of the surrounding cities, Valdosta currently 5, but when you get one of those bands that rotates over your area, the wind certainly will amplify pretty quickly. So there is definitely more room for weather here tonight and tomorrow. Even as a tropical storm, we can be talking about some significant damage. So here's a look at our live sweeping radar. All 5 radars are up and over parts of northern Florida and southern Georgia, where most of the activity, of course, is. And some of those rain rates were really, really impressive last night. So let me put some of this on and see what we get here with some of the bands that are just to the north of Jacksonville near St. Mary's. And this one's calling in just under an inch and a quarter an hour. And then I'll go up here and toggle on some of the red there, that feeder band, and see what some of the rain rates are there. So about 3/4 of an inch. But remember, these storms are training one on top of each other. So one after the other will continue to produce some significant rains in this area. And that's why that flooding risk can see the green underneath the, see some of those polygons there where we have flash flood watches, of course, where there was significant rains in this area earlier today. And of course, we're ongoing the risk of that tonight and into the next couple of days. In terms of what we're going to do in the next several hours, there's a look at the loop. This will, of course, animate the radar over the last hour or so, a couple of hours. And you can still see we have some straggler feeder bands or rain bands moving over north central Florida. So although most of Florida is in the clear in terms of the heavier weather, there's still going to be some peripheral impacts here over the next couple of hours. So keep that in mind. I'll pull this out a little bit so you can see the entire state. And the larger circulation still going to bring in a little bit more of a wall up there for parts of Tampa. Those folks really got hit hard late last night through the overnight. Cedar Key and, of course, up into Horseshoe. I don't know if you guys saw on our social media pages the storm surge, which was pretty significant for Horseshoe. It was about 5 feet. And I'll show you some of that video coming up tomorrow on the Fast Forecast. It was really incredible. We've already got some video up on our social media pages, so make sure you check it out. So there's still definitely some significant rains here. And let me show you this one particular feeder band. Hang on, because this one it definitely has some wind in it right here. So these winds are probably in the estimation of 40 to 45 miles an hour. Center of circulation right down in here. But some of these are really, really significant bands that are rotating over Valdosta, southeastern Georgia. And some of that's going to start to rotate into the Carolinas, South Carolina in particular, as we head into the next couple of hours. So new from the 5 p.m. update is the latest info. The National Hurricane Center has dropped all tropical warnings for the state of Florida. We did have some left over for the Big Bend area of Florida. That has now dropped. So all of the warnings now extending over into what we're dealing with from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, tropical storm watch, all the way up into Massachusetts. So again, the extension of Elsa's reach will be pretty significant as we head through these next couple of days and into probably even the weekend. Now, another high resolution product I've got shown here is the visible imagery. This is a great resource during the daytime hours when you're trying to look at significance in clouds. And let me show you, let me grab my pointer again. So the low level swirl, you can kind of see it right in there. But you notice there's a big burst of convection right here on the Florida-Georgia line, and then we've got another burst of energy right in here. Remember, daytime heating has been ongoing in this area this morning, so these folks got a chance to get up probably into the 80s with pretty elevated dew points. Anytime you've got a system coming in from the south like this, it's pulling in all that tropical air. So we're seeing some really big thunderstorms right in here. On the backside even, we're seeing some significant thunderstorms, and then we've got two big clusters right in there that's right over southern Georgia. So there is ample opportunity for some significant rains as we head into the next couple of hours. And as we take a look at the info from the Hurricane Center, the winds now are at 45 miles per hour sustained, and the pressure up to 1,003, and it's about 115 miles west southwest of Brunswick, Georgia. So just again, Brunswick right here, we've got it on the map, but there's Brunswick center over here. Forecast path really has not changed too significantly over the last couple of days of runs, and the only notable feature, as I mentioned, is that the longevity that Elsa stays together and just doesn't get off the Atlantic seaboard, just kind of hovers over the Carolinas, moves up into the Delmarva, and then up into big metro cities, Philly, New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C. All of you guys are going to get a piece of this. And of course, you all are used to nor'easters, you're used to even tropical activity, usually in this kind of hybrid fashion, which we're going to get. But notice those winds are still expected to stay around 40 miles an hour, which typically isn't a huge deal. A severe thunderstorm has a wind of 58 miles an hour or greater, but remember that you're only dealing with severe thunderstorms for short periods of time. You're not dealing with these things for multiple hours. So that's why we do think these power outages are going to extend up the Atlantic seaboard as we head into these next couple of days, because this will be an ongoing feature that will be, kind of unrelenting with those winds, even though 40 mile per hour winds, again, not necessarily life-threatening, but if it knocks down branches and power lines get into play, it can be very dangerous and very life-threatening. So keep in mind that these sustained winds at 40 will be in this forecast all up the Atlantic seaboard through Saturday. The WindRadar product, again, another great resource that we have to show the wind field, shows our kidney bean, if you will. I kind of talked about this yesterday. The kidney bean a little bit more cylindrical today, or symmetrical, I should say. So those winds anywhere from 39 to 57, moving up through South Carolina and North Carolina, and then right through Chincoteague and up into Chesapeake Bay, and then just south of Salisbury. It looks like it's going to stay offshore of Atlantic City, so that's good news. I know a lot of folks visit there this time of the year, and skirting off of course, most of the major boroughs there in New York. But East Hampton, you're going to be right on the outer edge of some of that wind. It's probably just going to wind up being breezy for you on Friday, but check back into the forecast, and of course, your local meteorologist there and the local officials there will be able to get you updated. And then by Friday in the afternoon and into Saturday, most of that wind field off of the northeastern part of the country, but still potentially has the ability to create some of that weather that could, cause some of these short-lived power outages as we head through the next couple of days. Here's a look at the arrival of the estimated winds, and this product really good for short-term analysis when you're trying to figure out what's going on. So we already know that southern Georgia is getting tropical storm gusts, but as we head through those overnight hours, Charleston, you're going to be in play, and then up into the remainder of South Carolina, Columbia, back up into Charlotte, over into the Raleigh area, also going to be getting some breezy weather. I think that'll be mainly breezy weather for you guys, and then crossing over the Delmarva, and then kind of just skirts out into the Atlantic for a bit, perhaps, and then kind of hugs back up the coast, up into the northeastern part of the country, and that will still be a factor, as I mentioned, all the way into Saturday. The high-resolution modeling product we've been been doing a pretty good job. Again, here's our center to give you your bearings. The center of circulation kind of right in here, but this is where all of the big winds are, if you will, the highest winds left over, and those are at 45 miles an hour. And as we head through tonight, most of that's going to fill through Georgia. I think Georgia, of course, will get southeastern Georgia will get the worst of what Elsa has to deliver, and then it's going to move up into central and coastal South Carolina and back into North Carolina. But look, I wanted you to notice how the rain shield expands as we get into early tomorrow morning and especially into the afternoon. So South Carolina, there's going to be some heavy rain for you guys tomorrow, and that will last for several hours, and then it moves into North Carolina. So as I mentioned yesterday, I was a little bit more concerned for the Carolinas in terms of the rain factor than the wind factor for you all, because I think as that rain shield expands and becomes more concentrated and those storms train on one on top of the other, we could see some significant downpours. And then it moves over Philly by Friday. That is going to be a mess for folks that are trying to get up and out the door for work. Up into New York City, going to see some moderate rain as well. The QPF, or the quantitative precipitation forecast, calls for 3 to 5 inches pretty much up and down the Atlantic seaboard. So most of that is manageable, except for folks that have already seen a lot of rain, and several areas in the line of Elsa have had significant rain. So that's why we are expecting to see a fair amount of flooding, or at least localized flooding, as we head into these next couple of hours. In terms of the severe weather risk, we have had that kind of expand completely separate and not in direct relation to Elsa. The parts of the northeastern part of the country and over into the Great Lakes and Midwest have a slight risk for severe weather, and so does parts of Montana and the High Plains. So those are not related to severe weather, or not related to Elsa rather, but we have seen pretty significant damage. I just got some video in from somebody in Massachusetts who has widespread damage. I have not been able to confirm whether there was a tornado there. I will show that to you on social media once I get a chance to turn it around and verify it with the officials. But there's been some pretty rough weather in the northeastern states, completely unrelated to Elsa today. And, there's going to be more in store as we head through this afternoon and potentially even into tomorrow. So there's a look at the satellite and radar and that line of weather that's moving through the Midwestern states. Again, kind of fired into parts of the northeastern U.S. Late this afternoon, creating some of that severe weather that we're also keeping an eye on. And again, we'll have more on that when I can verify what happened in Massachusetts. Just got the video video, and we haven't even turned it around yet for you guys to look at. But definitely been a rough go for some folks in Massachusetts where there's widespread power outages up there. All right, I'm going to turn things back over to Jamie. One of the things, Jamie, that I wanted to talk to you about is you and I are both are Floridians, local, or not local, but natives, and we have both experienced hurricanes several times, tropical activity a lot of times. Yes. But one of the more interesting features of these systems is when they have the ability to last this long period, like Elsa will. Although we're again talking about tropical storm, we're still talking about some long, widespread impacts from a tropical storm that we've been tracking for almost 10 days.
Yeah, exactly. Leslie, I tell you, Elsa is going to be a problem out there no matter what it is. Like we were just saying, hurricane, tropical storm, even a depression. It's still going to be big problems here because you got to think of the topography, the area that it's going to be heading over, and that's going to be the big problem. In fact, Elsa, the center of circulation, again, right here near Valdosta, and it's expected to take its movement off towards the northeast. Now, what I want to show is basically, okay, we've already talked a little bit about to the south. This is where we were on the Big Bend. So here's where we had the problem, and we still have the problems with some flooding here. And again, the storm surge. So now it's out of the storm surge for the Gulf of Mexico. That's not going to be the big problem. Here's what we're going to be looking at, though. Look at this. That is definitely the Atlantic Ocean right there. There's Savannah. There's Charleston. Again, right along the beaches here. And again, we're already looking. This is a look at the wind. This is the wind that we have coming in off the Atlantic already. Now, of course, as the center of Elsa gets a little bit closer, basically this is going to tighten up, and basically the winds are going to be picking up, and it's going to push all this water here, Atlantic water, up against the coast. So we're going to see the same kind of problems in that general location. Again, this is going to move its way all the way up into the South Carolina, the North Carolina area, and then all the way up towards the Delmarva Peninsula. Delmarva Peninsula especially, there's an awful lot of water located back in through here, Salisbury, up towards D.C., and whenever you get that high wind blowing back here, coming around that counterclockwise spin, it's going to be pushing all this water up against it. It's not going to allow that water to go out into the Atlantic like it normally does. It's just going to come back. It's going to back up D.C., Alexandria, this whole area back here is going to experience some flooding problems from that. So again, that's just along the beach. And then, of course, inland areas back from the Carolinas through Virginia, you're going to be dealing with the extensive amounts of rain coming down from Hickory all the way to Asheville. As we were just talking about, in fact, Leslie said, may not see the really heavy rain here if we can keep everything over to the east. But again, we'll have to watch for the exact movement of this. But again, some very heavy rain for sure going to happen around Fayetteville, back to Charleston, Columbia, and especially when you get over here towards Wilmington and then northward once we get up towards Richmond. So that's going to be a huge problem. Let me turn back on some of these watches that we have out here and warnings, because I want to talk a little bit about what we're looking at already, some anticipation of what they can expect as this begins to move its way all the way back up. Elsa is going to be that big problem, and that's what we're going to be looking at. We're already looking, in fact, as you can see, tropical storm warnings in effect in some locations, tornado watches in some locations. Look at this, high surf advisories already in effect in many locations out there, and that's going to be one of the big problems here. As you can see, looking at the high rip risk, you're looking at the water really beginning to pick up. The high surf advisories are going to be in effect until 5 a.m. on Thursday. So again, but this is going to be expanding its way upward. So again, this is just the beginning for a lot of folks. We're talking about the Georgia coast and parts of the South Carolina coast. Let me take you up a little bit farther here once we get up here towards North and South Carolina together. And you can see we've got the tropical storm watches in effect. And again, these whole areas are going to be pushing their way gradually off to the north. So again, that wind is really going to start picking up. And that's what the big problem is going to be here as this system moves its way in. So again, Elsa is going to continue to push right up here, up towards the Delmarva Peninsula, and we were just talking about up towards New England. And again, so everything, all this wind is going to be shifting. Instead of being due south, it's going to start gradually switching around Virginia Beach and up towards D.C. a little bit more onshore. And that's why we're going to see the possibility of those winds really beginning to pick up, and it's going to be pushing in all of that Atlantic moisture moving in. So, and it's the moisture that we're really going to have to watch out for too, because if we could just push Elsa straight north, it would start to run out of all that energy, and it would end up not having nearly as much moisture to work with. So some of the heaviest rain will start to dissipate, basically rain itself out. Not going to happen though when you're talking about it moving northeast right along the coast here. It's going to have all of this moisture to work with, and that's why unfortunately Elsa is going to be a big problem. Even as we start to lose some of that wind, we're not going to be losing that moisture, and that's why we're going to see the possibility of some very heavy rain all the way back out through parts of the mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast, and that's going to be a big problem. And they may still already be cleaning up from what's happening today. And I know Leslie was looking at some stuff up. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see what was going on up around the Boston area, but Massachusetts, yeah, was definitely underneath the gun for some stronger storms, and they may have already seen them. I'm not sure. Leslie, what's the report on that if you have it?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. I got some video off of Twitter. Well, maybe we'll try and show it in our next update of some significant damage up in not in the Boston area, but in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
And but you know, literally just got it, so I haven't even had a chance to really look at it yet. So we'll probably show that here in a couple of hours. But yeah, there's tornado watches up in those big areas of the Northeast. So again, multiple millions of people impacted, completely not related to Elsa. But there's a lot of other weather hazards going on today. Not only the severe weather threat and the tropical hazards, but there's all that record heat that's still ongoing in those western states. So, you know, there's a lot of weather to unpack.
That's a tremendous amount. Wow, look at that. I'm sorry if I jumped in. I'm sorry. I just as I pulled up there, look at the tremendous amount of warnings that they've got going on right there. Look at the severe thunderstorm warnings basically covering a big chunk of the area around Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and all the way back out through parts of Connecticut. So yeah, real mess.
Yeah, they're under a slight risk today, and so is the parts of Florida and parts of Georgia and South Carolina, and then there's another area that's over in Montana. So there's several areas of severe weather to track. Yeah, let me take a look at some of the comments here, Jamie, real quick, and we'll answer a couple of things before we take this live stream down. So we got a lot of people watching, of course, in Georgia, Florida, probably taking a break, you know, after a long night last night. I had several friends that were over in the Tampa area that stayed up all night. They were worried about the surge. They're all doing okay, which is good. But we got our one of our longtime supporters, Sandy Rose, of course, on YouTube, and she's in the line of Elsa. She's in South Carolina. She's going to be getting some rain from Elsa here in the next 24 hours or so. We got Penny Burns in the house as well. Domingo is in New York City. He's asking if New York City is going to be hit hard, and you know, I'll just quickly touch on that. You know, we don't think that New York. When I showed it earlier, you know, we think the city probably going to stay to the east of where the bulk of the wind field is. Most of that's going to be offshore by the time it gets up there. However, you know, I do think you're going to get some of that wraparound wind, and you're going to definitely going to have a breezy weather on Friday, you know, 25, 30 miles an hour in some of those gusty weather, those gusty squalls. And I do think there will be some rain over there as well. So let me see where else we got real quick here. Jamie, let's see. So Todd saying this means a lot more humidity. Absolutely. Anytime you get a landfall or you've got something in close proximity, you get a ton of humidity. Jamie, you want to talk a little bit about that? You know, we were not commenting this yesterday here in Orlando that you walked outside and it was just like this wave of humid air because we knew something tropical is coming when it's that sticky, and it's, you know, and there's just a thickness in the atmosphere when you've got a tropical cyclone coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Leslie, yeah, especially when you're talking about it wrapping in all that moisture. Of course, for us here in Florida, it was basically a lot of Gulf moisture, a lot of Caribbean moisture earlier. And of course, hold on just a second. We have a lighting right near the station. Basically, yeah, now we're going to be picking up all that moisture. In fact, the winds are already, as I mentioned earlier, you can kind of see, let me go in a little bit closer here, and you can see how the winds are a little bit more out of the south here, all the way up the Carolinas right now. And again, all this moisture that's out here in the Atlantic is already beginning to push in, and that's why you're seeing this big flare-up. Look how much rain there is right now, all the way back out through parts of Georgia, Savannah, and moving its way up towards Wilmington right now, and it's beginning to spread even up into parts of around Macon, Georgia, the rest of South Carolina. So this is what we have to watch for. You're going to see this big flare-up of moisture and big flare-up of showers and thunderstorms here from Columbia southward over the next, say, 6 hours, and then it's going to start spreading its way into the rest of North Carolina. Again, that's going to be Raleigh, that's going to be Charlotte, that's going to probably not, again, be up towards the mountains as much. However, it's going to be very heavy rain once you get over here towards the rest of North Carolina, and then it's going to be moving its way more towards the north. In fact, even as we speak, you can already see that this is just more moisture moving its way through Gastonia right now, just outside of Charlotte, just in case you're not sure. This is Gastonia here, that's Hickory, and as you can see, we're already just picking up moisture. So overall, the general south flow is already in place, and this is just going to help tighten it up as Elsa continues to move in. So it's that area of low pressure that's going to just kind of squeeze everything together. The winds start to pick up, and then we've got all the ingredients needed. Even though it may not be a tropical storm soon, it's still going to be out there. And so we've got the ingredients for all this very heavy rain that's going to cause problems. And not only is it going to cause problems for folks in their homes, also going to be the same with folks that are trying to drive. And just remember, a lot of folks took this week off because of the fact it's 4th of July and the holiday. Unfortunately, I-95 is going to be a mess. That's going to be one of the biggest problems as we head our way through. Eventually, I-26 coming in out of Charleston, heading up towards Columbia. That's going to be a problem soon within the next 6-7 hours. And as you can see, this heavy rain continues right up I-95, all the way back out here through the Carolinas, and yes, all the way back up into areas around the D.C. area. If you've ever driven I-95 anytime, except for maybe 3 in the morning around D.C., it is always busy. It's always very, very hard to get through, and it's going to be even worse with all that heavy rain. And then you're going to be dealing with that heavy rain all the way back out here through parts of New York, New Jersey, all the way back out through Connecticut, and possibly even over here towards Cape Cod and up towards Boston. So again, it's going to be really rough out there, so you've got to give yourself extra time wherever you go. Do not speed, and for goodness sakes, do not tailgate. Make sure that you are basically giving yourself a lot of room between yourself and the next person. Even though it may be a little bit more, that's what you have to do. Whenever you have rainy conditions out there, you've got to extend how much the distance is between you and the person in front of you, because if they have to stop suddenly, you've got to stop suddenly too, and you need that extra amount of time so that you can get there safely and make sure it stops in time. So again, there's a lot of things going on with that. And again, yes, that humidity, you can feel it right now. It's setting the stage for some of those heavy rain showers that we have. So Leslie, yeah, it's definitely going to be like that. It's definitely not dry, that's for sure. When the winds switch to the northwest after a front and you cool things off and you get dry air, that's one thing you are not going to feel as Elsa gets closer, that's for sure.
Yeah, the northwest wind, always a friend when you're dealing with tropical cyclones or fronts. Yeah. But we had a question, Jamie, on YouTube. Frankenstein, with a very clever spelling, was asking about Charleston. So let me show you this. Matt will take the weather computer and we'll use the MyRadar product. And so we're going to just start this off, from tonight. So Charleston, you're going to start to get this early tomorrow morning, probably while you're still sleeping, 4:30 in the morning. Looks like some of that wind's going to be rolling right over you through most of the times that you may or may not be dealing with it, because you may be sleeping in still, or not quite out the door for work. But moving up into Myrtle Beach around work hours, so that's for sure going to be impacting those folks. But in terms of where most of this wind field is going to go, it's going to be for that area, Charleston. It'll be later tonight, overnight hours, early tomorrow, and then up into the Carolinas, and then into those big metro cities. That's what I was talking about, Chincoteague, and over into Chesapeake. That's going to be late at night, so hopefully that'll fare well or fare better for those folks. But as it gets up into the Atlantic and kind of just recenters itself over the Atlantic for a brief period there, the Western Atlantic moves right back over parts of East Hampton up into Boston, Nantucket, and or just right offshore. It's going to be splitting hairs here whether this actually happens, but this will be again high impacted, very large metropolitan areas that will be impacted by the wind. Even if you don't get a bunch of rain from this and you just get some breeze, it's still going to slow folks down. Anytime there's weather that's impacting where you live or where you drive, everybody seems to drive slower. I know it's not just in Florida. I know it's nationwide. Everybody tends to, put a halt on their brakes, which you should. You should be observing the road hazards and taking a look at the weather. But it just compounds that weather scenario. So I just real quick, a couple more folks, and then we'll say goodnight for now. So we answered the question. Charleston, New York City. I think we had a couple of questions. Let me go over to Facebook real quick because I saw something over there. So we got Northwest North Carolina, Rhode Island, again, some peripheral impacts for you guys. We've talked an awful lot about the Georgia impact. So yeah, tonight and early tomorrow is your go days. And then Texas, someone joining us, in Jackie Huggins in Texas, again, so completely separate from Elsa, Jamie, has been the ongoing weather. I don't know if you want to slide the radar over to Texas. Houston yesterday was flooded out. They were getting some flooding rains, and they've really been dealing with some significant weather. Had some tornado warned storms there earlier this morning. So there's a lot of weather going on, not just with Elsa.
No, that's for sure. We're talking about that. Oklahoma City, the same thing, same situation. Some pretty heavy rain coming down, coming from the opposite direction this time. It's coming down from more from the north, sagging its way southward here through Oklahoma City right now. So again, lots of it. Now, the one thing you want to take a quick look at here, let me move up just a little bit so you can see it outside of me. You can see here on San Antonio and stuff, we're still talking about that area of low pressure that's down there. And that was one of the things we were watching as far as steering was concerned. Of Elsa as it moved its way a little bit closer towards onshore. We're hoping it would finally take that northeastern turn and get off into the Atlantic maybe a little bit sooner for some folks, but it hasn't happened so far. But again, still looking at very active weather here just outside of Austin and moving its way down towards Corpus Christi, Brownsville, Harlingen area, picking up some heavy rain there too. So again, lots of activity here across a big chunk of the southeast and even over towards the rest of the Gulf Coast, the western Gulf Coast here, back through parts of Texas. So again, lots of activity as I expand this picture out a little bit more, and you'll see just how extensive the amount of rainfall is that we have all the way from parts of Louisiana back to Mississippi, over to Alabama also, the Tennessee Valley picking up on the heavy rain too. So as I expand the picture up even farther, is there anybody not getting rain right now? Check this out, all the way from Madison, Wisconsin, back through Des Moines, and then all the way back just outside of Topeka now. Now, one thing we can see here is that north flow. That wind is beginning to pick up, so the dry air is coming in, but only for Sioux Falls, South Dakota right now, Lincoln, Nebraska, and that area is basically going to get a clear out. So again, all of this moisture, all this rain that we have is moving its way off towards the east right now, and it's going to combine with all that moisture from Elsa as it continues to move up the coast. So again, it's going to be a mess anywhere you go, really across the eastern third of the U.S. coming up over the next 2 days or so before things start to slowly calm down. And really the only good news is the fact that as things calm down, usually after a tropical system, you do start to draw in some drier, cooler air across the area. So that is good news for some folks. Some folks are going to enjoy a couple of days, but we still have to get through a couple of very active days here across especially the mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast as we continue to watch everything kind of come together here in those general locations. So Leslie, it's going to stay busy for us, that's for sure. Even into the weekend, I may be just a little bit busy.
That's right. It's been a busy 10 days for you, Jamie. I know you filled in for me last week when I was on vacation,
No
and
problem.
then you went right from that to tropical. So, hopefully it'll be a little quiet for you this weekend. We'll see.
It's okay. It's okay. Either way is good.
All right. Sounds good. All right. That's our latest member of the MyRadar weather team, meteorologist Jamie Martin. And again, I've known Jamie for years and a huge asset to our team. So, Jamie.
Sure.
Monitor everything for you through the next several hours. We'll have another update in a couple of hours. We're trying to do them every 2 to 3 hours, timing dependent on the weather and what's more relevant for you guys. So we want you to we value your time and want you to value the time that you're with us. So we try and do these updates when we think there's stuff that you need to know about. So we will have another update this evening, and then we'll probably continue with our updates the rest of this week, and we'll come in with some live coverage as well, just to keep you updated. And again, I'm going to follow Elsa up the Atlantic seaboard because it's a big news story, a weather story, even though it's going to be, a somewhat weaker tropical storm. The impacts are pretty far-fetched, are pretty far-reaching. And so that's something that we want you guys to know about. But I think that'll do it for now. Before we sign off, make sure that you check out our social media handles. You can see them here on the screen, I think. And yep, they're right above my head and Jamie's head. So make sure that you follow us on all of our channels. Of course, YouTube is the big channel we're pushing. Just met our milestone of 100,000, and we would love to see that number increase exponentially. Would be awesome. So tell your friends about our YouTube channel. A lot of folks that joined our channel recently when we did this push with the phone giveaway did not even know this channel existed. So make sure you let your friends know if they're weather enthusiasts or they have weather in their area that we're here. We're live streaming. We're always giving you guys updates, trying to push out the latest info to keep you guys safe. Same thing for Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. We're also there, and we also are on Twitch. So I believe I hit all the housekeeping notes we need to do. And on behalf of Jamie Martin and myself, Leslie Hudson, thank you so much, you guys, for sticking with us. A really good update. Got some good interest from all of our social channels, and we'll see you back here later tonight. Stay safe tonight, Georgia and the Carolinas.